Hey guys, welcome to the Noob Spear podcast. Welcome back. If you're a regular listener, it's awesome to have you with me. My name's Isaac or Shrek, and I host the Noob Spear podcast. It's interviews with spearfishing experts, authorities, and characters from around the world. Today, it's Captain Bly from Lineage Charters out of San Diego. Jerry Guerra over at Neptonics was kind enough to connect the two of us, and we made this thing happen pretty quick. I had a really good chat with him. We talk yellowfin tuna, bluefin tuna, halibut, yellowtail, some of the other mesmerizing species they have access to down there. And Captain Bly is super cool. Matthew says, Captain Bly is a super knowledgeable dude. I had lots of questions. He answered all of them on the way out. We got out to the area. He located a school of bluefin tuna. I got ready and punched a dive, and bang. I can't thank them enough for putting me on this beautiful bluefin tuna. He's a great charter boat captain, and I think he's mellowed a little with age. So I don't even know if the Captain Bly handle suits Matt as well anymore. But anyway, a good solid chat. Before we get there, I've got a monster shout out bag before this interview gets started. So excuse the longer intro. Fabian _CSM has left a phenomenal voice message, a bit of a story of one of his recent dives. Hang around to the back end of the show to listen to that. If you want to leave a story, a voice message, go to noobspirit.com, go up to Noober Stories in the menu, and just record up to 3-minute voice message. Tell me about one of your recent dives, what you love about the podcast, how it's made a difference, one of the actionable tips that you have adopted into your own diving, and that'd be awesome. Also, check out Freshwater Worlds at freshwaterworlds.com. They've got a bunch of events coming up. That's a phenomenal way to connect. I know Justin Lee out of Hawaii goes along regularly. He loves it. Great social event as well as competition. You're cleaning out invasives a lot of the time, and just a phenomenal event and great way to hone your craft and think more strategically about the way you go spearing. Completely different take on it than many of us have, but I'd encourage you to check it out at freshwaterworlds.com. Eric sent me an email. The Fin and Forage Run Catch and Cook comp was a huge success. They had a monster prize pool. First place went to Aaron Koseba at Cooler Chef. But there's a cool video recap of the event. If you want to check it out on the Fin and Forage YouTube channel, I'd encourage you to do that. I'm going to make an episode coming up. It's the YouTube's best spearfishing channels. This was as voted by the Noob Spear community on our Facebook group. More than 4,000 people on there voted up their favorite YouTube channels. It's a fantastic little resource. I wrote a blog post with all the channels that got identified, or nearly all of them. Go to adreno.com.au and go down into the blog menu and check out YouTube's best spearfishing channels in 2022. There's a top 20. There's a whole bunch of, I actually picked out videos that I like from each channel. And so it's a great way to find some new froth if you are stuck in some dirty water or a dry spell. Check that out at adreno.com.au. There's another couple of guides I wrote up there as well as a super fast guide to smoking fish. I'd encourage you to check that out. Ethan from Complete Angler and Camping World in Marambula says, mate, I work at a dive shop and I've noticed the difference in the divers I have in the shop after setting them onto your podcast. So massive thanks to Ethan for sending that in. It was a cool little message. He was offering to help out with the 99 Spear Recipes beta reading. So last but not least, before we get into Captain Bly and the meat and potato interview that I absolutely loved, the Blue Water World Cup, Palapis Ventana. These guys run a super cool event. It's July 10th to 14th, 2022. We've come on board as an official sponsor. Check it out at palapisventana.com. July 10th to 14th. It's a phenomenal event. They provide pretty much everything. Accommodation, you're diving out of their boats, and I don't know if you get given a guide, but you get put on the good ground. Phenomenal opportunity to shoot some cool fish and network with a bunch of absolutely legendary spearers. But anyway, hey, let's get into Captain Bly, hear about getting rocked on the rocks, getting your dive fitness back, and all the good things that come with being a spearfishing charter boat captain. Here we go, Captain Bly. I can't wait to get into today's episode, brought to you with proud partner adreno.com.au. The Noob Spearo podcast has been partnering with adreno.com.au for more than 100 episodes, and these guys are awesome. They have huge spearfishing mega stores all over the country. You can shop online or in store. Use the code NoobSpearo whenever you spend more than $200, and you will automatically save $20. That's right, use the code NoobSpearo online or in store when you spend more than $200 and save $20. I love these guys. I remember the first time I brought a spear gun at adreno.com.au down at the Wollongabba store, and Adreno have been a huge part of the excitement that I have about spearfishing. Check them out at adreno.com.au. Use the code NoobSpearo to save. Neptonics was founded in 1996, making trigger mechs in a barn in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Solid gear that works was their founding principle, and it still rings true today in every pull of a Neptonics trigger, in every snap of a Neptonics band, and in every whiz of a Neptonics spear gun reel, singing with the power of another big fish. Got a great deal. You can use the code NOOB10 to save 10% off anything and everything at neptonics.com. It's solid gear that works, equipment you can rely on. Save 10% off any order at neptonics.com when you use the code NOOB10. Well, today, Noob Spearo community, we've got it's a bit of a short notice guest, but he comes highly recommended from Jerry at Neptonics. I've got Captain Bly here, the owner, captain of Lineage Charters. Am I saying that right? Lineage?
That's right, Lineage.
And the craftsman, the bespoke craftsman of Captain Bly spear guns, which are beautiful works of art as much as they are functional weapons of death, I believe.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
They're a good-looking spear gun, man. So we got lots of ground to cover today. You seem like a bloke that's obsessed with the ocean and you love the spearfishing lifestyle.
I've spent my entire life on the ocean. I take after my grandfather. I spent 45 years commercial tuna fishing back when they fished it with poles, no nets, and yeah, he got me onto the ocean really young at about an age of 6, and then I fell in love with it at about 9 or 10.
Wow. So what? He was captain of his own vessel, like with the pole fishing?
No, he was. He worked on boats and then he became an engineer.
Yeah.
But I always looked up to my grandfather and was just like, man, he does awesome stuff. He goes away for 2 months on the ocean, 3 months on the ocean, and my dad wasn't that way, so I gravitated towards my grandfather.
Yep.
So
it's funny, we're all born with our own personality and our own particular desires and stuff, and sometimes our parents shape and influence that, but sometimes it is that generation beyond. So your grandfather was an engineer as well. Is that where you draw some of your passion for making spear guns as well?
No, actually, that my passion for spear guns comes from my stepfather. Growing up, was a woodworker his whole life, and so at a young age, I got to start playing around in his shop and learning about the tools and how to do stuff, and then kind of got away from it for a long time, and then honestly, I wanted to make a better spear gun than I was on the market that I could buy. I'm a wood spear gun guy. I'm prejudiced towards wood spear guns.
Yeah, I see them. But there's something beautiful about that solid timber platform. Like sometimes, I started spearfishing with pipe guns, and so using a big timber spear gun for me came much later. But when the first shot I ever took with a timber spear gun, there was this dampened, beautiful, gentle recoil, and a very accurate platform. It didn't jerk in your hand in any way. You got much less jerk out of because sometimes the where you hold a pipe spear gun, you just seem to get a twist in your shot as you squeeze the trigger, because obviously trigger pressure is a bit weird with the mech style we use.
Yeah, on the pipe guns or on the.
On both. I mean, they're all friction-based mechanisms, so that but on the timber spear guns, you seem to get less of that twisting thing as you pull the trigger. Is that your kind of opinion?
Exactly. It goes back to the early days when I used to shoot and hunt. And if you shoot a gun, or if I was match shooting, you shoot a heavier barreled rifle, and the more mass equals less recoil or movement when you pull that trigger. And you don't think of it in a gun, because the bullet's out so fast, but you'd be surprised. It's the same way in a spear gun. The hard part is getting that gun ballasted correctly so that it doesn't feel like you've got if it's a huge tuna gun for taking down big bluefin or big yellowfin, it doesn't feel like you got 15, 18 pounds in the water. It feels just like nice movement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference. Is there's a lot of guys that make custom spear guns. I dive with every single one of my guns before I send it out the door. I take it out, I ballast it while I'm out, and make sure that it's right. You can't ballast a gun, to me, my own opinion, in a pool and get it 100% dialed in.
Just because of the difference between salt and fresh water?
No, it's not so much of that, but you in a pool, you can't dive with it the way you're diving in the ocean.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. You can't dive and like just be around the reef a little bit more. And I'll dive with that gun for 30, 40 minutes, say, okay, it's good. Different scenarios. I'll sit on the bottom on my knees, or I'll do this or do that, so that, okay, yeah, that thing's, ballasted exactly how I like it.
So over the years, with experimenting with this and this mindset you have of testing and making sure that the gun performs as you've sort of guaranteed, I guess, what small changes have you made in the way you design and create spear guns?
Back when I started, the guy who kind of taught me, when I got into spearfishing, it was the old timber block 2x4 style. And I gradually got away from that, and, sucking the handle up as far as you can, I think, has been the biggest change. The closer you can get your handle to the shaft,
yep,
is to me a big advantage, because whether it's control, line of sight, I don't aim when I shoot. I shoot instinctive, like I shoot, an old recurve bow or something.
Yep.
If I aim, I will miss. Mm-hmm. That's bottom line. I cannot. I've tried time and time again. I had to have, when I did a lot of high speed video testing in pools, just to figure out what's going on. I didn't shoot the gun. I had, people who are good at aiming shoot the gun, because I don't aim.
Yeah.
I just pick a spot and let the body mechanics go there.
I'm exactly the same. I think the problem with the instinctive method, and feel free to comment on this, is that you're relying on triangulation, which is almost like it's a different thing. Like, you're looking on the fish where you want to shoot, and then you're just letting the spear gun in your hand sort of get everything where you want. Or, is that kind of the way you're saying you shoot? And what are the drawbacks to this style of shooting?
For me, personally, I can only speak, there's no drawbacks. Trying to explain somebody, especially on a mid-handle gun, is a whole different ball game, because I really only shoot mid-handles, but that's most of our diving is dirtier water or larger guns. And, to me, you don't want to shoot a 5-band gun with a rear handle. It's just, you don't have any control or movement over it. But I just equivalent it to people in America throwing a baseball. When you throw a baseball, you pick a spot, whether it's, that catcher's glove or whatever. And if you're trying to aim that baseball, you're going to miss. But if you just let the proper body mechanics take over, then you're going to throw that ball where you want to throw that ball. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, but I think this method speaks to the fact that you need to put in the time and just shoot the gun many, many times, and then the more you do it, the better feel that you develop.
Exactly. And I'll tell people when they get a new gun, I'm like, look, if you go out and shoot that gun 10, 15 times, shoot it at a piece of kelp, or, shoot it at an opal eye or a blue perch, take that fish home and go put it in your garden, so you don't waste it, a fertilizer right there. But I'll talk to people, they'll be like, yeah, I've been out 3 times. Have you shot the gun? No, I haven't. I'm like, well, when you come back to the boat or whatever, before you get back to the shore, shoot the gun so you know how the gun reacts in your hands. And I find that a lot of people just don't do that.
So,
go ahead.
No, I wanted to get back to your ballast point. So you're taking your guns out, you're applying ballast out there and getting it right. Are you going a little bit muzzle heavy with the way you ballast your guns? Is that the way you want them, or? So
on a mid handle, I prefer a very slow sink at about 15 degrees muzzle heavy. Yep. And what I found in high speed video testing is, if you think you have a gun ballasted perfectly. But when all that rubber moves forward, it's causing lift. And especially if somebody's going to shoot, a lower percentage on 300% stretch instead of what I shoot, 350 or 375. That shaft's going to take a little bit longer, but as that band material moves forward, and it doesn't matter if it's a monster double roller kicker, it's the same thing. You still have rubber and flotation moving forward, and you got to get that shaft out of that gun. Because there were guns I thought, man, this gun's ballasted perfectly, and I put it under high-speed video at 100 frames per second, and you go, wow, there was a quarter inch of that shaft still in that gun when it started to lift, just that hair of a millimeter.
Yeah, right.
And that is, at 20 feet, that little bit of lift there is going to cause you to shoot 2 feet low or a foot low.
That's a very interesting insight. I like that. I mean, along the same sort of track, Blight, like, when you think about salinity, like how much salt you've got in the water, you guys are in the water of the Pacific there, but you got Atlantic down in Florida. You got a lot of guys in the Mediterranean that love spearfishing and girls as well. Down here in the South Pacific, if you like, does salinity in the saltwater also change that? I know I asked the question kind of in a roundabout way earlier, but I'm wondering if that affects the ballast, and if it does, How do you recommend people alter or adjust it if your spear gun's been shipped, say, 1,000 miles away?
I honestly, the only salinity difference I have found in my personal, and I have dove the tropics, and it seems the tropics have less salinity than the cold water. Diving in Northern California where it's 48 degrees, it's a lot. They say it's more salinity and it's a denser water. But I honestly, I haven't noticed that much of a difference. But I haven't done, any kind of technical research in more salinity.
It's probably more displacement rather than weight anyway. But anyway, I'm getting lost in it, but I just find it interesting to geek out on it with someone that's in the know.
Yeah. No, but when I build a rear handle gun for somebody, I try to make that to where it only takes a little bit of pressure on the bottom of your heel to lift that gun. So when you let a little pressure off, when you're tracking a fish with a rear handle and that fish starts to come up, you don't want to have to take your hand up and move the gun up. Just a little bit of pressure on the bottom of your heel will lift that gun up a couple inches, and then boom, you can shoot. So, but that I don't know if that's
no, it's good. It just got me thinking about all the micro mechanics of extending and shooting. I mean, it would be interesting to video yourself taking a shot just to see if you were making any, like you were talking about human mechanics, like sometimes that instinctive feel, you look where you want to shoot, you pull the trigger and your body does the rest. But I think some of us have got some pretty, like they're not natural sort of body mechanics. And sometimes just maybe a little bit of analysis or just someone saying, hey, look, the way you're extending there is a bit awkward. Like a lot of the times I've heard of guys here with rear handle spear guns and they shoot the spear gun too close to their face and they, near knock themselves out. And in firearms, it's called the Weatherby eyebrow. But in spear gun, we don't have a similar sort of saying. Have you come across that much?
I have, especially with I won't mention any names, but European larger rear handle spear guns. Especially, there's been quite a few people out here, so especially hunting bluefin tuna out here, that have had a little bit of injury.
Yeah,
whether it's teeth or nose or eyebrows. It's the same thing. And I've seen people with shooting mid-handle guns that, the guns aren't heavy enough for the amount of bands they put on there. And it's the same way. People get busted lips all the time. One, they don't lock their elbow when they're shooting.
Yeah.
But, you've got to have, the more bands you put, the more mass and more weight you have to have to make it controllable.
Yeah, for sure.
So I mean, you can't take a skinny, let's say 8-pound gun out of the water and put 4 or 5 bands on it and expect it to shoot right for one, and expect it to not hit you in the face if you're not, locked in.
It's a lot of there's quite a lot of torque on those guns when you go to pull the trigger and they're all powered up. It's a scary thought getting smashed in the face with one.
Years ago, before I started making guns, I had a big spear gun that was wooden, and the handle sheared off when I pulled the trigger,
Holy
and
moly.
slid back, and it busted my face a little bit, but I didn't break any teeth out, or I've been hit in the face a lot harder than that. So, but it was like, wow, I had a little bloody lip, but it was still like, man, that was a fish. That was a 65-pound sea bass. I was, white sea bass I was aiming at. And man, I was more upset that I missed the fish instead of getting hit in the face.
You're talking about getting hit in the face. It reminds me of the fact that you're an ex-veteran as well. Is that where some of the getting hit in the face events happened in your life?
Well, that and just being a salty, rowdy kind of guy. I got my nickname because I'll tell you what. I admit I was born and raised in the old school ways, and the old school. You shut your mouth, you listen, and if you didn't, you got knocked upside the head. And I used to be that way, and I've greatly changed. Nowadays I became way more mellow in my older age, and just opening my eyes and experiencing new experiences.
Yeah.
His that's made me a better diver, watching other people, and
which armed service did you serve in?
So I was in the United States Coast Guard, did search and rescue and law enforcement there, and then I was also in the Army.
Ah, righto. Cool.
So yeah, a little bit of training there, and I've hunted my whole life. My grandfather got me into bird hunting and deer hunting and elk hunting and all that fun stuff.
You're in a great part of the world to take advantage of that. So I wanted to read out a couple of things. I went for a little bit of a stalk this morning before I got up and just had a little bit of a look at Lineage charters. A couple of people had some real nice things to say. Tracy said, had a blast on our charter chasing bluefin all weekend. If anyone could put you on a fish, it's Captain Bly. Captain Bly is extremely knowledgeable concerning the unique fishery of San Diego. He's been fishing and diving in San Diego his whole life. He took the time to pass on any information to us that would help us connect with our first bluefin, and we succeeded. He let us use his gun, which is crazy powerful and accurate. It was the most epic trip ever, she says. It's a good rap, Captain Bly.
My passion nowadays, especially on the charter stuff, whether it's fishing or spearfishing, I get my high nowadays, from putting people on fish and seeing them shoot that fish that they've been targeting for a long time, or that's a dream fish, whether I love seeing people smile and just be like, man, this is the greatest day. And then I know I did my job.
Yeah.
And, nice. I did everything in my power to put that person in the right spot at the right moment. That's where I get my joy from nowadays. Not that I don't enjoy shooting fish and being in the water. I mean, I love that too, but I got to make a living.
Yep.
And, that's the way I make my living. So that brings me the most joy, when it comes to running the boat and being able to pass on that knowledge of people, to people. Of, hey, you know what, your gun's rigged this way. Can do you mind trying something different? Or, they've been in the water sliding in on schools and they're missing, or they're not, or being able to get down quick enough. And I love to go back on this, the stern or the transom and talk to them. And then after I give them a little bit of advice, they're like, man, I saw 3 fish that dive, And then nice. 2 more dives, they shot their first fish.
Yeah, nice.
Bluefin or whatever. So I think that's what I enjoy, especially as I get older, because I don't have the energy or the endurance I used to. Not that I'm washed up or anything, but I just enjoy like going out diving. Now I don't even have to shoot a fish. I'd rather go out and have an awesome day on the water and pass the knowledge along.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, like if I'm heading out on a charter, particularly in some new waters. Or, like if I was very inexperienced, like I think those tips and stuff would make the day. Like the journey of self-mastery, like while you're spearfishing, there's so much to learn and every fishery is different. So like I was going to ask you, like what percentage of the people that come out with you are open to some of the tips and ideas that you give? Like are most people open to learning and readily sort of have a listen and try out what you've said?
I'd say about 70%.
Okay.
So about 2/3. And it's in any kind of sport. You always have the guy that thinks he knows everything. And there's no changing that guy.
Yeah.
And I don't try.
Yeah.
You know, if the guy doesn't want advice, I'm not going to give him advice.
Yeah.
I'm just, because, I mean, I like to think that I wasn't that way, but I was probably that way when I was 25 years old or whatever, but one of the greatest things, your questions, we can address later that, it's about being able to just sit back and watch what people who are successful do, and then try to make that into your own routine. Whether it's life or spearfishing or whatever, sometimes shutting your mouth and just sitting back and watching is way more productive than banging your head against the wall. If that makes, a little sense.
There's something stubborn and stupid about, like, myself in particular. Like, I seem to like learning some stuff the hard way for whatever reason. I don't know if it's an ego trap or if it's just like like something about being autonomous. I mean, I value the learning journey, but sometimes I just learn things the hard way for whatever reason. So, it's good you don't get discouraged by people that don't listen, I think. But
a quick little story here. Last year it was the most epic day for big bluefin. We got everybody off on the boat, 5 guys, a fish, at least one fish from 180 to 255, I think it was, on bluefin. And one of the guys came up to me and it's like, "Sorry, Captain, I keep missing. And my exact words were to the guy, "Hey, you know what? I've been beating my head against the wall for many years, so get back out there. We still have a couple hours of daylight, because I'll keep beating my head against the wall for you, because I want you to get a fish." And the guy ended up getting a fish. And, it's the same thing. Don't give up. Don't give up. I don't care what it is. I try never to give up. There's time you have to give up, but make sure you've done everything you can before you give up.
Learn from the best. Adam Stern's courses at freedivingfamily.com are written and presented by some of the world's best freedivers and most experienced instructors. Lessons learned come from years of freediving and teaching at the highest levels and are now condensed and available for everyone. Go to freedivingfamily.com and use the code SPIRO and you get 20% off any course. Now, there's Frenzel, Advanced Frenzel, Hands-Free Equalization, there's Mouthful and Deep Frenzel Equalization, even Bi-Finning Essentials. Get that finning technique right. It's the 1%ers that make the difference in spearing and allow you to have more time on the bottom, and you feel better even doing it. Go to freedivingfamily.com and use the code SPIRO to get 20% off any course. Adam Stern's courses at freedivingfamily.com. Kill fish with precision and power, sending shafts from a stable platform with Killshot spear guns. Made in the Florida Keys by Ed Martin, you're buying American-made, dependable spear guns. Get $30 off any Killshot spear gun at killshotspearguns.com. Yes and amen, Nuba. That's $30 off American-made performance spear guns at killshotspearguns.com. It says if they're in the shop or on the phone, they can cash in by saying, "Crikey, mate," or "The Noob Spearo podcast sent me." Check them out at killshotspearguns.com, based in the Florida Keys. Are you following at Old Man Blue Dive on Instagram yet? Bert Calder, creator of the Old Man Blue Dive gear, is an absolute legend. They are people that froth on the spearing life and intentionally make super hard wearing and practical gear that will stand the test of time. Visit oldmanblue.com.au and check out a bunch of tough, robust equipment made by people that are just as passionate about spearing as you are. oldmanblue.com.au. Okay, let's it'd be great to hear a couple of examples of some of the common struggles and common advice that you give to help the people you take out spearfishing to overcome. So, like, what are some of the maybe the 2 or 3 most common issues that you see with people going out and trying to shoot fish off your boat?
Not being able to control their excitement.
Yep, I can understand that one.
And it's blue water diving can be some of the most fun in the world, and it can be some of the most boring. Driving around the ocean, waiting to find fish or fish to come up or whatever. But you have to be ready at all moments, especially with the bluefin. We can drive around for hours, and those bluefin are down at 1,000 feet. They don't want to, and when they decide to come up, it's game on. And you might only have some days there's an hour windows, maybe, some days there's 5-10 hour windows, but you've got to be ready And I mean, I don't know how you control your excite. I mean, I don't know the special thing for people to control it, but I try not to let people who are on the step ready to go in see the 200 pounders jumping out of the water, because that just makes it worse. I try to get the fish under the boat so people can slide in and make a more comfortable dive down to the depths. I have a searchlight sonar which reaches out 900 feet, 1,000 feet each side. Oh. So other dive boats don't have that, where I can find the fish, get on them, get them under the up and down meter, and then hit the buzzer, and then they can slide in the water and make a drop to 30 or 50 feet. That I found over the last 5 years of doing this is brought up the success rate way more than trying to get onto a foamer. Because people have to kick 50, 60 yards, and then they have to punch a dive or, whatever. And that's takes it off. Not everybody's in really good shape.
Bluefin tunas sound like they're a strange animal in terms of their behavior. Like, you get workups and boil ups and you get, but then this is anecdotal stuff that I've heard from my friends down in Melbourne, South Australia, who target southern bluefin tuna. Can you talk about the fish's behavior in your neck of the woods? Yeah,
so, there's a lot of times where you don't see any surface type action. It's all electronics. And, those fish are on the meter at 100 feet. And, if you've got a good diver, most of the time those fish will get curious and they'll meet you at 50, 40 feet. And then other times, they don't want anything to do with a single person. Bluefin, though, yeah, they're crazy. Once you think you have these guys figured out, almost every year it's a different pattern. It's a different thing. It's, whether you're fishing them or diving, a different way to approach them every year. And it changes hour by hour, minute by minute on the water. I mean, there's been days where this was working, then all of a sudden, man, what the heck, this isn't working. Now I got to figure out a different way to get on them to not spook them. They're one of the craziest tuna in the, to try to figure out, because they also have the ability to just sink out and go to 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
And in 40-degree water and be perfectly happy.
Do you see schools of similar sized fish and then larger ones come through? Like, you'll get 30-pound fish, and then below them you'll have, bigger models coming through, or and what's your season for them?
So right now is coming into our season. They're just in range right now. They're sitting down below the border. We in San Diego here, we're right on the Mexican border, which we do a lot of fishing and diving in Mexican waters. It's just getting a license, Mexican fishing permit. It's no big deal. We don't ever have any hassle. So what people hear about, the cartel, that's not on the water or anything like that. But, so they're just coming in range, but early season fish are really hard to dive on. They spend a lot more time down low, and they spend a lot more time feeding during the nighttime. Usually once June hits that's game on. Once that water temp gets around 64 degrees, the bait fish they're on the anchovy has gotten a little bit bigger. And instead of that anchovy being really spread out, it gets into more balls. So then it brings the fish into bigger schools. Because when it's all spread out, the fish are in small schools moving around fast. It's kind of hard to dive on. And there are, days that you get where, oh, wait, there's what we call a breezer. When the bluefin come up just to digest food and warm up, they get into these huge groups of fish, and they're just kind of on the surface moving one way. And those are great for diving on.
Yeah, wow.
Because, they're sluggish. But back to your question, guys I'll see it on the electronics, right? Because I'll mark bigger fish come out as bigger marks, and I'll be like, if a guy's a good diver and everybody else is getting to 40, but they're only seeing 30 to 80-pound fish, that guy who punches a dive below the other fish, generally those bigger fish are hanging out below or outside of the smaller fish. So if you have the breath hold, punch to the bottom of the school and see what's below, at the bottom of the school, because that's where your bigger fish are gonna be. But for the most part out here, there are times it's a mixed bag and you don't know. But for the most part, most of the fish are generally around within 50 pounds of each other, especially when you start talking about the bigger ones. Because the little guys really don't like to hang out with those, 150 pound and bigger.
What about yellowfin? So you got yellowfin, I'm assuming, are all south of the border?
We get them up here. The yellowfin up here aren't the easiest to target. They are very fast moving.
Yeah.
Because they're generally, we don't get big yellowfin tuna here. You get a 50 pound yellowfin. That's a really nice yellowfin here. There are a few shot here and there. A couple years back, we had a few that were shot at, I think, 80 pounds.
Wow.
But we had a lot of them that year. In the last few years, I have a buddy of mine who's a marine biologist out here, in Scripps Institute of Oceanography. You probably heard of them. They have buoys out here that actually have sounders on them, and they can tell which way fish are moving.
Okay.
And the last few years, we've been getting a better grade of yellowfin coming in from the southwest, not the southern grade, not bluefin, but yellowfin tuna, coming in from the direction of Hawaii out of the southwest. Oh. So we've had groups of the smaller group. Normally our fish coming out of the south from Mexican waters is a smaller grade. We call them footballs. And, and then by the end of the, in the fall, those fish will be up to maybe 30 pounds. But we've been having larger grade yellowfin move in from the southwest, which is that fish that is in between here and Hawaii.
Ah, okay.
And that's the fish that more people have been able to get on and shoot here. If you're diving down in mainland Mexico, where I've dove a lot, it's totally different diving. You're drifting a high spot. You're drifting out there, you're chumming and you're relaxed and you're making deeper dives and you're going to see a few fish swim by, not, a school of 1,000 fish.
What's your personal best yellowfin?
Fishing is 302. Diving is just under 300.
Wow.
So I lost a yellowfin. I know it was well over 300. He took all the gear down and was down for, about an hour.
Tell me about that.
This was a long time ago, but when we didn't have as good a gear as we have now.
Tell me about that. Tell me about that. Where were you?
We were down in Punta de Mira, which is Puerto Vallarta area. And, the captain on the Ponga, we were diving around the rock Corbeteño, and then there's a high spot off there. He's like, man, get in. There's fish going. And I hopped in, and there were just 300 pounders swimming everywhere, chasing bait. They were chasing 5 pound bonita, and I stuck one. And that was the old school days where we didn't have as nice a bungees as we had. And we had spill packs and smaller floats and they took off, and I wasn't even close to the surface, and all 3 buoys were past me with 2 spill packs, and it ended up tearing off finally, but he towed those buoys underwater for almost an hour, and it was getting dark, and we found the buoys, and I was just like, man, I hate losing fish. I think everybody does, but hopefully the guy survived.
It's amazing what they can survive sometimes. The damage.
There was a couple years ago, a fisherman caught, I don't know why somebody was trying to do this, because they watched the YouTube videos of guys shooting, 200 pound tuna on a small pipe gun. But a guy caught a 200 pound bluefin on the troll, and the thing had a 110 centimeter pipe gun with a reel on. The shaft was still attached to it, and the fish was still eating. So.
Do you think
that was one of the best ones I've seen?
That's crazy. That shaft must have been rusted through.
I think it was only in there for a few days.
Okay.
Because I got the picture sent to me from another guy, and it wasn't that rusty, but the line hadn't got much on it, so it had to have been a few days. Probably somebody inexperienced. It was diving a kelp patty, the floating kelp that breaks off that Dorado and Yellowtail cling to. And this huge tuna comes by and went, oh, and shot it and went, uh-oh.
It's hard, eh? Is that self-control, I think, is one thing you talked about earlier, like getting people to control their excitement and then make rational decisions in the moment. It's quite it's a skill that takes a while to forge, I think.
Oh, I've done plenty of stupid things in my diving
Give me
or,
another one.
or fishing. Oh yeah, let me throw this light line, or oh wait, I got that fish, and then next thing you know, like, what did I do? What did I do?
Mm. How,
So
how do you go with the freediving side of spearfishing? Have you enjoyed that aspect of it, like breath hold stuff?
me, I don't like the competition, or I don't like the what do they call that? The just the free dive part of
Competitive
it. There's
freediving, the depth.
yeah,
Yep.
I don't enjoy that. I enjoy being in the water, and like I said, I've seen some of the coolest stuff ever without even shooting a fish that day, whether I'm diving. Um, I think anybody could be a productive spear fisherman if you can hold your breath for 1 minute and dive to 50 feet and
Yep.
be calm. I think anybody, you don't have to hold your breath for 2 minutes every dive and dive to 100 feet. I know lots of guys that are great line divers and can hold, every dive they go spearfishing, they hold their breath 3 minutes, but they're always sitting in the wrong spot. They don't know how to hunt.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing where people miss free diving is, and I think I had an advantage of because I've been bow hunting my whole life. And so I equate spearfishing and bow hunting very close. But it's about the stock, and for me, it's about the stock, and that's where people lack is they think, oh, I need to hold my breath a certain amount of time, and I need to get to a certain depth because all the freediving classes. It's all the performance freediving. That's what they call it. The people who teach those type of classes, that's generally all they do is line diving and competitions, and
Yeah.
that's great for them. But they're teaching people who are spearfishing. I'll get people coming on the boat, and we'll be diving some of the islands out here, and I'll be like, okay, well, what's your neutral? Well, they told me in the class I had to be neutral at 33 feet. Well, okay, you need to put on another 5 pounds because you need to be neutral at 18 feet for hunting this.
Yeah.
So, we're not diving 80 feet, so you don't have to be neutral at 33 feet.
Yeah.
But they've been beaten into their head that they have to be neutral at, 33 feet, which
Yeah.
that's great if you're diving deeper, but when you're hunting shallower, you can't be neutral at 33.
I talk about this too, and I've talked about it with freediving instructors as well. Like if you're hunting 30 feet, like let's say 20 feet, and you're chasing lobster or something like that, like the last thing you want to be is like positively buoyant when you're on the bottom trying to grab something. Like it just makes it a pain in the ass because then you use all your energy holding onto a rock or something like that to try and make sure you're in the right
Exactly.
position to grab the lobster.
Yeah, and the same, I'll take people halibut diving here, or white sea bass diving is a huge thing. These people are diving down to 30 something, or they're holding on to a kelp stalk and their legs are going up in the air, and they wouldn't be able to shoot a white sea bass swimming through the kelp if they wanted to. I'm neutral at freaking 17 feet when I hunt white sea bass.
Mm.
Now I'm not the poster child for the most safest way to weight yourself, but that's in my mind, that's the best way to do it because then I can stand there in the water and be vertical instead of being horizontal and blend in with the kelp while I'm hunting sea bass. If that makes sense to people out there.
100%. Yeah, yeah. It's just I think the rationale for weighting yourself for 33 feet is a good one, but I think it just needs to be adapted in a smart way with a bit of sense by people that know how to hunt. And then we adopt other safe strategies to make sure that we're all right. But if you're hunting shallower than 20 feet, weighting becomes much less of an issue. People do black out in even really shallow water, but it's just like you've just got to apply a level of common sense. Like you said, like if you're diving less than a minute, if you're blacking out, it's probably, like you'd have to be doing something pretty, like I'm not having a shot at anyone, but you'd have to be doing something pretty silly, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. When I hunt halibut, we're rarely over 25 feet. Sometimes it's all the way in shallow at 9 feet of water. You can't be covering the bottom because you don't want to be right on the bottom. You want to be a couple feet off the bottom so you got a better angle on looking for them. And I'll find guys all the time. They're trying to hold on to something, or their fins are on the surface kicking, and they're trying to, you gotta be able to do that. But also, too many people have the fear of just dumping their weight belt. I go on a trip. If I go on a trip to Baja, California, we drive down. and we go dive places, and I'll bring two full weight belts.
Yeah.
I have no problem. I've never dumped a weight belt, but I have no problem ever dumping a weight belt.
This is another one. Like I met so many people. Like we all talk about dumping weight belts. I can't even remember talking to someone that's actually dumped their weight belt. Like, and that instinct's not trained. Most of us, like if you've been down there for a longer dive and you're worried in the least, I think you should unclip your weight belt and hold it there so it is ready to drop if you fall unconscious. But none of us have got that trained into us. It's a hard one to train, I think.
I was, there's an old lifeguard that I used to dive with, and he taught me that. And there's been many times I've had my weight belt pulled to the side, and if I would have blacked out, or if I felt that I was going to black out, I could have just let go and dumped it. I had one guy diving with me, and I had to go dive and get his weight belt off the bottom. But he dumped his weight belt because he thought he was going to black out. And he's like, "Oh, sorry." I'm like, "Dude, you did the best thing. I don't, it's a freaking weight belt. Who cares?"
Yeah.
I don't want to call your family and say that, you blacked out.
I took a father and son out through a heavy surf zone. We were shore diving, and we really wanted to go diving basically, and the conditions were just like my nice sheltered spots were just like it was pea soup. You couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. These guys really wanted to dive, and out beyond the surf line, it was actually the water was a bit cleaner. It looked like there was probably about 12, 15
meters.
feet of, sorry. I'm used to like a southern audience here, so we speak in metric, so I've got to translate.
I know the whole metric system.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, well, you're an engineer, so of course you do. But sort of like 9, 12 feet viz out beyond the breakers, but I took them out, and the surf they were a bit slower getting out beyond the sets, and the father was a little bit of a bigger bloke, and he has just panicked. And he's dumped his weight belt right there in the middle of the surf zone. He's trying to climb this cliff face with waves smashing him. I felt so guilty for taking them out there. I was just like, we got in, he was really shaken up, and I never got that weight belt back. But like lesson learned, you just got to, you've got to gradually acclimatise. But I didn't. Like you say, you don't care about a weight belt. It's a person's life. Like $100, who cares? Done.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. I had an experience when I was probably, 15 or 16. We were still able to dive abalone here in San Diego, and I went out and the surf picked up, and I had only had a couple weights in my surf shorts,
Yeah.
And so I ended up taking those out, and I thought I was going to die. I got pounded in. The surf came up to like 10-foot surf, and I got rocked.
I think I saw this. I think I saw your post on Instagram with that. This was like a bloody mess. I think it blanked the image out. Was that the one?
I can't remember.
It says graphic content, and you said like this got you to the bone, like, and it's just a.
Oh no, that was it was diving in Hawaii on Maui. Oh. That was a funny story there.
What happened?
So a good friend of mine, Alan, he's born and raised in Maui, and so we went out with Uncle Norm, and Uncle Norm was fishing. So he dropped us off at this one point, and we're like, hey, okay, we're going to pick us up at this point. Well, 3 hours later, Uncle Norm's nowhere to be seen in the boat. Wow. And I'm like, and this is Hawaii. The water is 85 degrees, and I hadn't had a drink of water. I'm kind of dehydrated. So I decided I was going to get up on the rocks. Well, I got up, rode the swell up on the lava rocks. Well, just before I could turn around, another swell that came back doubled up with another one.
Oh.
And smashed me over. Well, it flipped me back over, and all that water came down on my leg. And so I don't know how I didn't break my tibia, but it just opened up that whole thing and broke a chip off of that tibia. But
holy moly.
So and then the bad part about it was 2 minutes later, guess who comes driving around the corner
Uncle
like
Norm.
nothing?
There's
Uncle Norm. But Alan had told me, he goes, well, this wouldn't be the first time Uncle Norm took us diving, and I had to swim back to shore and walk home.
Oh, wow.
So I was just like, oh man. But it's those kind of things that you remember the rest of your life, and you laugh about now, but it's just, hey, I got a big scar and a chunk out of my tibia.
Hindsight being 2020, and given the fact that sometimes we don't get to choose who takes us out to the spots. It's just opportunity comes, and but like maybe a lesson learned. Would you take, like a hydration type pack on your float or something similar? How could you best prepare for a situation like that with the possibility of the boat not coming back for you?
Yeah, I would. We were diving with just reels, so there was no hydration or no float to put up water. No, I'm just a dumb guy, and I'd do the same thing all over again.
And
that wasn't close enough to death. I mean, you asked one of your questions in your sheet you sent me, and I had an experience nighttime lobster diving. Nobody else with me. There was another guy, but God knows where he was, and I was going into the big boulders on jetties. I was going in looking for lobster, and a surge came in and it wedged me in there, and it was the closest I've ever been to blacking out. I started seeing stars, and that stopped me from entering those holes anymore. And that had been 20 years ago, and I haven't gone in a hole like that ever since, because I thought I was done. So
yeah, wow.
But that kind of stuff.
This is a pretty common one. Like I've actually had this from a few people recently talking about exactly the same thing. Surge washing them into a rock in a fairly shallow cave and feeling like they're pretty close to, being beyond their breath hold, and that's it, lights out. This also seems like a type of diving that's accessible to fairly new and inexperienced divers, given the fact that it's relatively shallow and you're chasing a very popular target, particularly when you're starting lobster. What's your advice to people if they are doing this kind of diving?
What I've done over the years is I carry a float down with me. I use a short float line about 30 feet, and I have a float, and I have my lobster bag on that float. Because when I got pinched in there, my lobster bag was on my hip, and it kind of wedged me in there. And I carry my big light on that attached to that float with a weight on it. So if I wanted to mark a spot too, I can mark a spot and come back. But that's kind of kept a lot of the gear off of me, so I don't get caught up as much. And these rocks sometimes have kelp and stuff growing off that get caught up in you too. And then I also wear a little light that straps to the mast strap.
Yeah, righto.
I don't know if you've seen those. They're a couple double A's, and it's just enough light to where if you got a lobster and you need to dim the light, you still can see what's in front of you. But I think that's the biggest thing is I don't push the limits like that, because it's just a freaking bug. It's just a cockroach.
Yeah.
And I tow that buoy behind me with my float.
Do you like to penetrate? Great news. Penetrator Fins, today's Noob Spearo podcast sponsor, are tough as nails. Robust, dependable performers with beyond industry standard warranty. Communicate direct with Larry and his team 24/7 for all your fin inquiries at penetratorfins.com or at penetratorfins on Instagram. Baby's bum finish. These things are smooth as silk. They glide through the water. They give you that awesome balance between power and efficiency. This is Penetrator Fins. Use the code NoobSpearo to save $25 on any pair of Penetrator Fins at penetratorfins.com. That's right, use the code NoobSpearo to save $25 on any pair of Penetrator Fins at penetratorfins.com. In the world of freedive spearfishing, there's no magic breathing technique that's all of a sudden going to get you down and shoot massive fish at depth and holding big bottom times, but there is a way to do it safer and smarter, take down more fuel to maximize the time that you have there. Learn at noobspearo.com/TED with Ted Hardy from Immersion Freediving. If you take down more fuel, you can stay for longer. Learning to take a bigger breath is not such a big deal. Ted breaks it down for you with a free online course at noobspearo.com/TED. Take down 20 to 30% more air just by learning how to take a full breath. Again, learn how to do it free at noobspearo.com/TED. Shrek, my dude, you're killing it on the Noob Spearo podcast. Every guest you get on froths on the spearing life, and the actionable info is off the chain. Over here at Spearing Magazine HQ, it's the same, buddy. So many noobers are submitting their adventures, lessons learned, and pictures here at spearingmagazine.com. Just wanted to say that noobers can get an international subscription here at spearingmagazine.com. They can also check out our in-the-face apparel or getting a subscription to the world's greatest spearing magazine. Check it out at spearingmagazine.com. Shrek, thanks. Love what you're doing. Jeremy out. With dive lights, there seems to be a lot of bro science to them. You guys dive like California spiny lobster have got a great reputation. You night dive for them. With regards to your flashlight, I've heard guys say they like quite a high lumen torch, but with a lot of dispersion, so that it's not a real bright, tiny line of light shining on a lobster. What's your take on it all? Do you have two dive lights? Is that what I'm sort of hearing?
Yeah, the one that's on my mask is on all the time, and that's just a little bit of light so that I can see something, a couple feet in front of me. But I do like a light that is a wide broadcast, so it covers a lot, but it's not bright. Because I found in the past, like other people, when you hit a lobster with a really direct light beam, I find they like to move, and it kind of spooks them.
Yeah.
So the same thing is a wide cast light for finding them, and then I'll shut that light off when I go to grab them, and then I'll just use that very light. It just doesn't seem to spook them as much.
Nice. Have you got any brands or personal preferences with your lights? Can you remember?
Honestly, just the underwater kinetic pistol grip with 4 batteries, the LED broadcast one.
Yep. All right.
That's the one I tie to my float line. Other people will get the ones that, go on your wrist and cost a lot of money. And I just find that, my stuff like that gets banged up because I'm in the rocks and the surf and all that. I don't personally want to spend the money. I don't think I need to.
Yeah.
But there's the ones you can strap on your wrist with all the battery packs. I tried that Night Rider one years ago. They had a battery pack you could put on your weight belt. And that was pretty good because I didn't use it on my head. I had it in my hand.
Yeah.
And that one I did like because you could switch to a red light.
Mm-mm.
But that was quite a few years ago. I don't even think they're still around.
Are you using like a loop to catch your lobster, or do you just catch them by hand, like grabbing the base of the horns? What's your technique?
California, you can only use your hands.
Yep.
No loop, no knot, no 3-prong, no nothing.
Yep.
So
cool.
It makes it a little more challenging for people. Yeah. You get guys that come out from Florida or other places, or what? You can't use a tickler, you can't use a net. Nope. Gotta use your hands. So our hands do get quite torn up. You want to use 5 mil gloves with some Kevlar on them, because that's spiny lobsters. That's their name, spiny.
Yeah, they it seems similar to southern rock lobster we get sort of down south of me and in New Zealand, and those things just tear your gloves to shreds and your hands as well. And the wrestle, when you get hold of a decent one, do they spread in the hole so that their legs sort of wedge out and they're hard to pull out?
Oh yeah. If you get them in a hole and you're just on the top of the carapace where the antennas are.
Yeah.
I tell people don't pull on the antennas because you're just going to break them off of the lobster. But they'll get in there and they will not let go.
Yeah.
They're like a pit bull. When they lock on, they're on. They're not going to let go till they're gone.
So do you do like a push pull backwards and forwards?
I'll try, and it just depends on how much air I got because I'm doing it free diving.
Yeah.
I'll try to like kind of let my grip off a little bit and see if they'll move a little bit. And I've tried the push pull. The thing is, those tails are so strong, and if they got that tail like wrapped around some kind of rock or something under there, there's just no getting them out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's cold water here in San Diego. In Southern California during the wintertime, it's 60, 58 degree water, and it's 38 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and it's not the most enjoyable thing anymore for me.
I think I might
it's
have
a young man sport.
I might have had a buddy come down your way, Andre, a few years ago. I've had him on the show before, and I did get to see a San Diego night dive, chasing the spiny lobster. So it's you guys have spoilt there with how beautiful your ocean is. Like you've got kelp beds, you've got a healthy sea lion population. It seems like a fairly vibrant ecosystem as well in terms of, like we were talking about salinity before. I think it's almost like really well oxygenated, the water down there. It seems like it's quite nutrient dense. Is that how you would
Oh,
describe it?
yeah, and that's why our visit is usually pretty bad because it has so much nutrition in the water. I mean, you can be diving in the kelp beds and have a school of a million mackerel or a million sardines swim through.
Wow.
And you dive to the bottom and the sea anemones and all the life that people don't realize until you slow down and you go look on the bottom, all the little horn sharks and all the weird stuff, moray eels, lots of moray eels out here. It's a very vibrant coastline. I think just because we have so much good upwelling and that cooler water is usually, more abundant than hot tropical water.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about Lineage Charters. Like, have you guys got one main vessel you operate out of?
Yeah. So the Escapade, I bought that boat, what is it, 5.5 years ago now. And I've been through it and basically rebuilt everything that needed to be rebuilt, changed it a little bit because I love building things. And, I'm a craftsman. This year, our new addition this year is an RSW fish hold. So all the fish are, submerged in salt water with, refrigerated salt water spraying on the fish if they're not totally submerged. So it keeps that fish at 34 degrees in salt water, and it's the best quality. One thing that as I've grown as a person, I'm more in tune for quality than quantity. If we're diving or fishing in a tuna, it doesn't matter if it's a 15-pound tuna or 150-pound or a 300-pound tuna. That fish comes on board and it's bled instantly.
Yep.
It's gill and gutted the proper way, so the belly's still whole. And then the bigger fish, people will take their fish and throw it right in ice. You do not want to do that to fish. They don't understand how hot these tuna get. Mm-hmm. So they'll either be put overboard and cooled. We don't have to worry about sharks getting them. Or, if it's not, that fast paced, the deck hose stays inside of that fish and it's in the shade, cooling that inside down. Because when you stick your hand inside to gut, let's say a 200-pound bluefin, it's over 100 degrees in there because they just had a gnarly fight.
Yeah.
And then this next last year we started doing it, but this year I'm going to try most fish the Ikejime on it.
Yeah, nice.
So because nowadays I think a lot more divers and fishermen I see they'd rather catch one or two fish and have it prime quality.
100%.
Than to get, oh man, we smoked it. We got 20 fish, but all of it tastes like crap.
Yeah. I've got a seafood cookbook coming out. I don't know if you're aware of it, Bly, but it's we crowdsourced all these recipes from the community. There's more than 150 recipes in there. One of my favorite additions to the book was a DIY jarred tuna recipe, which is like how to make your own, like canned tuna, but with the fish that you've caught yourself. But tuna is a fish that it seems to require a little bit of knowledge and understanding in order to process those fish from when you first shoot them to when you do something with it. And that knowledge, I think a lot of Spearos are not actually familiar with how to care for tuna as a unique species. Very interesting that you talked about temperature there. So a Spearo shoots, let's say, 100-pound bluefin tuna, brings it back to the boat. Just walk me through what your deckhands kind of do, what your ideal process is.
So, I'm going to teach them before to kind of cut a gill in the water, get that thing bleeding as fast as possible. So if the heart's still pumping, that it's going to pump out as much, So we get it on board. If they didn't bleed it, we'll bleed it, and then the process is make sure everybody's back on the boat safe. then we get on there and we're getting the gills and the guts out as soon as possible. Now we do that the same way a fish would go to Japanese market, right? The belly's full, so that if you wanted to, you could pack that belly with ice, and it saves the toro, which is everybody's favorite.
That's the belly meat, isn't it? The toro.
Yeah, the belly meat, and I mean, I love eating it. My specialty is I love smoking it and giving it to people because they're like, oh my goodness, it's just some of the most. When you eat it warm off the smoker, it's the most.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
you're speaking my language here.
I do love to cook and eat. So,
me too.
So that fish is taken care of, and and we get people going, well, why isn't it on ice? You got to get on ice. Well, you don't want to put it on ice, but on our boat, there's, on our multi-day trips, we only take 4 people. And so that it's just that core group of 4 guys that all know each other. And I'll take them. I'll say, come here, stick your hand in this belly. And they'll go, oh my God, that fish has been dead for a half an hour.
Yeah,
it's still hot.
So do you tail tie them and then just hang them over the back or over the side and into the...
if we have a bunch of them, we will.
Yep.
But, if there's 1 or 2, the deck hoses, which is just grabbing seawater. And put them in the shade, or, if they're not, put a blanket over them, some kind of blanket, and then as soon as they're room temperature, whatever the ambient temperature is, all right, time to get it on ice. And then we'll put ice in it. And the fish hold isn't big enough for fish really over about 160 pounds. After that, we use fish bags.
Yep.
And if we're going out targeting, I fill up this 2-ton fish hold with shaved crushed ice. And then we take that ice, we pack the bellies, then we pack the fish on ice.
Yeah,
and,
nice.
I bring salt because I add salt to that too, because you don't want any fresh water getting into your meat. That's the biggest thing I find, whether it's people on TV or people take it to fish processors or whatever.
Yeah.
I watch them rinsing down fillets with fresh water.
Yeah.
You never want to rinse a fresh or saltwater fish down until you're right about to eat it.
Yeah, 100%.
And so that's the biggest thing. People, why are you putting salt? Well, salt makes it colder. Plus, the salt in the water is not going to affect the meat. Sometimes we'll head and tail them, and then they'll go in that brine in the RSW. Well, the tail of a 200-pound fish, you're not going to eat at least a foot of that tail because all it is sinew. And so if any water migrates into there, it's no big deal. It's not like you're going to ruin any fish. But if you take the head off properly, there's not going to be any meat damage because you still have the belly, the membrane still intact and the skin's still intact and everything.
The tail and the head you can use for stocks as well and soups if you've got a big enough pot. Then I like some of the head meat, like the cheeks and the jowls and whatever else.
Nothing beats grouper cheeks or big snapper cheeks.
Yeah.
Or halibut cheeks are really good too.
I don't really get halibut here. I've never eaten one. I'd love to. But back to sort of the bluefin. So we get back into port. The fish has been in ice. How do you advise processing it? Because cutting a tuna up is a little bit different. And there's a lot more art involved in how you portion it out and stuff like that. How do you advise the guys to do that, or do you help them?
Well, so on the boat, we'll process a bluefin up to about 40, maybe 50 pounds. It just gets too hard after that. The regulations in the United States, it's NOAA's regulation. If you cut any tuna out at sea, you have to save the belly, the loins, and the collar, which are all good eating stuff. I mean, bluefin collars on the grill or the smoker is awesome, but a lot of people, I don't want that, but they have to be kept until the person leaves the boat. So when somebody books a trip, they get the email I send out when they book a trip, and it lists 5 different processors in San Diego.
Oh, nice.
So that, and then it lists, there's 2 guys in San Diego in the last few years that have gotten a business because of this bigger fish of picking up fish. And, then they work with the processors. They take all your information down, and then they take those fish to the processor, and then the processors either ship it out or you can pick it up the next day. And I tell everybody, make a reservation when you book your trip, because during the season, they'll cut off people that don't have reservations because they're too busy. So because they handle the sport fishing fleet, which is massive here in San Diego. And so if you don't have a reservation, you might find yourself, wow, I have no way to process this fish.
We talk about sustainability a lot. I personally think like this treatment that you're teaching these people, how to look after a fish. Personally, I would rather have one good eating fish than 10 like poorly cared for fish. Like, in fact, I think you get a little bit fussier the more you've done it. But I've never speared a tuna, a bluefin or a yellowfin, and I think, obviously there's a slightly different treatments with all of them, but having that knowledge and having someone show you how to do it from start to finish it would be a huge benefit of coming on a charter. Like, not only do you learn how to hunt them, but arguably you get to learn the most important part, which is how to care for them.
Yeah, because it's not always about the hunt; it's about the journey. It's about the full process. And sometimes you look back on stuff and go, "Wow, I had more fun learning that." Just for example, taking care of that fish. Well, when I got that fish home, it was still in sashimi grade meat. It wasn't like, well, I might be able to make poke out of it or something like that.
Yeah.
But I take whether we're fishing yellowtail or calico bass or rockfish. We have cold water rockfish out here. We fish in the bottom. We fish them from 150 to deeper, but they all get bled. And I'll keep one not bled, and it's really white meat fish, and you fillet one that's not bled, and people are going, wow, there's blood all in this fillet. And then even these rockfish, they don't have a lot of blood, but just getting that blood out of them, it is night and day difference. And then, a lot of people don't like fish like they don't like game, right? Well, it's the same thing with wild game. You hunt. Well, if you don't age that meat, it's going to taste, gamey and tough,
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with, if you don't take care of all of your fish, it's not going to taste as good. And maybe people who don't like fish are going to like fish.
We're getting sidetracked here, but it's exactly what I like to do, Bly. You talked about aging game meat. Do you ever age tuna? Have you got a purpose-built fridge or something like that for aging fish?
So I do. And people can't see us because I can see you, but I'm going to walk you back here because I'm down in my shop here.
All right, I'll describe it as best I can for the listeners, and maybe I can share part of this on YouTube.
Yeah, so last year I aged 150-pound bluefin for 6 or 7 days.
Yep.
And it was kind of by accident. It was like I went diving. The only time I went bluefin diving for myself last year, shot the fish, got home, had trips to run for a couple days. And so I hung that up with the tail cut off so that any blood can migrate down and drip down. And then I just left stuff to keep the blood. It was the best bluefin tuna I have ever eaten in my life.
Yeah.
And everybody I gave it to, because I'll shoot a fish and I'll keep some of it for smoking. And I give a lot of fish away to people who enjoy it because I only enjoy most tuna raw. Yep. And, but I tell you, aging that fish, even if you just take your loin on a smaller fish and age it, you're going to notice a lot different taste, and you're going to get rid of some of the maybe the metallic taste that some tunas have. You're going to get rid of that stuff, and you're going to let the protein the enzymes start breaking down the proteins.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a whole different experience.
Yeah.
Dry aging though. That's all I've done.
Yeah. Yep. I'm familiar with some of these concepts, and it's really only fairly new to me in the last 18 months. Like I learned about not adding fresh water because that introduces bacteria and stuff like that. If you can dry them right off and hang them for, at least 24 hours or 48, like it's a game changer.
It is. And I mean, anybody that can have an old refrigerator in their garage or whatever and rig something up, don't cut that fish the same day. I don't care what fish it is. If it sits on ice for a couple of days for one, that's going to be even better, because anything you can age on the bone is going to give more flavor to that meat, just like game. You want to age game whole if you can, or if not, just quarters. But try aging. If you're going fishing or you're spear fishing, you shoot a 20-pound yellowtail. Try aging that in the refrigerator whole.
One of the problems, like you identified too, is like you want to hang the fish too, don't you? So that the blood either drips out the head or the tail if you've cut it off. A lot of people seem to wrap the tail and hang them up, like tail up and then head down in a refrigerator. But to hang a heavier fish like in the 20-pound range, you'd need to rig something up in order to be able to do that. Actually, that's a really interesting point. I'm just going to put it out there to the Noob Spearo community. If you have rigged up a refrigerator or something in order to dry age fish, I'd love to see some photos. And hopefully Bly will send me in a couple that I can put in today's show notes of his setup. And then if people go to noobspearo.com/Captain Bly, I'll also have his Instagram linked up and Lineage Charters, and I'll have some photos in there of his dry aging facility, because I think it's a game changer, Bly, and people are going to want to know about it. So noobspearo.com/Captain Bly, and I'll have all that stuff linked up.
And I might even have a picture of that tuna hanging on my Instagram.
Another thing I noticed was you underwent some shoulder surgery, and you had, I think, 7 months out of the water. I was going to ask you how you recover your dive fitness.
Wow. It's been a long road. I probably should have had surgery 10 years ago, but I kept putting it off. Nobody has time to sit around for 6 months. Just hit 6 months after surgery. And, I've been trying. I've never been a jogger. I've lost a lot of muscle mass in the last few years, not being able to work the upper body.
Yeah.
And so I've just kind of, gone with it. And I'm as slim as I was in 8th grade now.
Wow.
But, yeah. But now I do a lot more cardio now.
Yeah.
And I went on a Baja trip, and it wasn't so much the endurance. It was just trying to be comfortable again in the water, because it's been so long for me out of the water. But the biggest thing is I've never been one to do tables, sit in the couch or a chair and do tables. I don't have that kind of patience. I just say stay active, in the cardio wise, because I don't think enough people do cardio. And that's been my key is I've never been a jogger, and I jog now.
Yep.
That's like, wow, I jog. That's crazy.
My problem is I get to the gym and just, like, I do more of a functional type, high intensity type workout involving sort of, multi-muscle groups for a warm-up now, but I still prefer weights. I struggle to get on a treadmill. My knees just start complaining as well. Maybe that's given away my...
But try lighter weights, more repetition, but try some apnea while you're doing it. That's going to really help your stuff out. A big guy like you, do it at home if you're self-conscious, but you don't want to be in the gym doing, 20-pound curls, but do 50, 20-pound curls and hold your breath as long as possible. And that's going to build up that anaerobic part of your muscles, which is all getting used when you're diving.
So this is anaerobic. You're talking about the muscle's ability to retain and hold oxygen for sort of prolonged periods. Is that sort of what the mechanism you're talking about?
Yeah, and getting your muscles used to that, because that's that part of that mammalian dive reflex is your body kind of goes, okay, I need to just control this stuff and keep oxygen in these bigger muscles so that I can still move my muscles around. I'm not a scientist or
but it's all good.
Fitness guy, but that's just what I've seen through people. The guys in Hawaii, the lifeguards, they'll dive down and they'll pick up a rock and they'll run underwater as long as they can to get that, and that's just building up, not just their CO2 tolerance, but that's teaching their muscles to operate on not breathing.
Here I was thinking they only did it for Instagram. Turns out there was a legit purpose to it. Oh, that's good.
There is a legit purpose to what those lifeguards do in Hawaii.
I thought it was just getting mad followers and likes. But that's awesome. So back to your vessel, the Escapade, did you say was the name?
The Escapade. Yeah, I never changed the name. It's been that name since 1970. It was when a boat was built. It's a solid fiberglass hull, um, and it's fiberglass and composite structure and everything.
Mm.
So
How big?
yeah, it's 43 overall.
Yeah.
It's about 14 feet wide. Nice wide boat. And on our multi-day trips, the only thing you got to bring is whatever kind of alcohol you want to drink.
Yeah.
We supply water, snacks. Most divers don't eat 3 meals a day, but we always have like not bananas, because most people are superstitious about bananas on a boat, but fruit and oatmeal. A lot of divers like to have for breakfast and stuff, and then we kind of just cater to what I talk to each group and say, hey, what will you guys kind of like to eat? I don't want to have just a standard thing. And that's why you're going on a trip with just, 4 or 5, 6 people.
Yeah.
It's catered towards you. It's like, what do you want to target? Okay, well, we don't want to target, bluefin. We want to go target yellowtail and white sea bass. Okay, well, we're going to go do that. It's what they want to target.
Yeah, nice. Okay, cool.
So all you got to bring is your dive gear. When it comes to tuna and whatnot, I have always got a couple tuna guns on the boat for people. Most people have their reef gun or their, mid-sized gun. That's not the most expensive gun to buy. Big tuna guns are expensive. I understand everybody can't buy it. We also have bungees.
So you sort of like rent out or make available some of your larger blue water guns for customers?
I don't rent anything. It's on the consensus of, if you bend a shaft, you pay for the shaft. If you lose the gun, you pay for the gun. But I don't charge anybody anything for gear unless you damage the gear.
Wow.
And part of spearfishing, you damage gear. You bend shafts and
100%
and whatnot. We get all of our bungees from Jerry. There's only one float, the Ocean Hunter 3 atmosphere float. That's the only float I would ever recommend to anybody. That float is so bulletproof. I've had 2 of them on the boat. Only one I've had to fix because somebody let it hit a slip tip, and it put a little hole in it. But I patched it with the same thing you patch an inflatable with, and it's still good. But those floats are so bulletproof. You can pump them up to 40 pounds. I've had those floats disappear for 10 minutes and pop right back up.
Yeah. They have got a phenomenal rep, especially against their main competitors, because to be honest, I think there's really only 2 of those style floats on the market that are highly recognizable, and I've heard lots of people recommend them, particularly people that do a lot of blue water hunting.
Well, the big thing is there's another popular float out there. You can't pump it up as high. And 3 atmospheres is over 33 pounds. Most of them, maybe go to 33 pounds, or they go to most of them 29 pounds.
Yeah,
which isn't a true 3 atmosphere float.
3 atmospheres is like 45 pounds, isn't it? One atmosphere is 14.7. Yeah, so yeah, that's freaking.
So yeah, these floats. I mean, on their books they could say, or in their instruction, I think it's 41.5 or 42.5 psi is the max psi.
Yeah.
Now that's cold. When it's in the sun, it's probably going to be closer to 45, 50 psi.
Yeah.
Jerry at Neptonics, he's the one who told me about them when they first came out. He's like, hey, we tested these things in Indonesia. We pumped them up and then we just left them full for days in the hot tropical sun. He's like, we never had a problem. And they tow the best behind the boat, because when you're looking for bluefin, you're towing your float behind you. A lot of the other floats, crap, I got to stop the boat because that float dove under, and just, somebody wasn't, you got to have that bungee tied off, or somebody really holding on to it. Because if that float dives under, I've got a 29-ton vessel. It's not stopping very quickly. So it's like, all right, hold on. We did have one accident when somebody wasn't watching, and they didn't have it wrapped off on the rail, and they couldn't hold on any longer. And they just let go, and it took a spear gun and flipped it about 30 feet in the air. Thank goodness nothing happened, but spearfishing is dangerous. And, I want to make sure people understand that muzzle control is so important, because you could have the best gun, but you never know what's going to happen, and never point that gun at something that, you don't want to hit. Mm-hmm. So, but we have all that gear, you need, and like I said, there's no charge, and people don't mind paying, $110 for a shaft that they bend, when they get up, 180, it doesn't matter. They shot a bluefin. That's still a pretty incredible feat. You can't do that very many places in the world.
Equalizing problems can be something that derail you. Not today, my friend. Go to freedivingfamily.com. Check out either the Frenzel and Advanced Frenzel video or the Mouthful and Deep Frenzel Equalization course at freedivingfamily.com. You can use the code SPIRO to get 20% off any course at freedivingfamily.com. These courses are put together by Adam Stern and a select team of legends, and to help you overcome different issues and help you perform better. And some of them are extremely relevant for freedive spearing. Check it out at freedivingfamily.com. Use the code SPIRO to get 20% off any course. I just love a functional and simple spear gun that I can trust when I pull the trigger. Killshot Spear Guns utilize the finest of kiln-dried Burmese teak. Killshot Spear Guns also combine American-made parts and fine craftsmanship to bring you accurate, reliable, and simple spear guns that you can trust, fish after fish. Get $30 off any Killshot Spear Gun at killshotspearguns.com. Yes and amen, Uber. That's $30 off American-made performance spear guns at killshotspearguns.com. I'm really sorry for this terrible accent. Brought to you by Ed Martin at killshotspearguns.com. Bly, I feel like I could talk to you about spearfishing for hours and hours. I want to cover off 2 quick more sessions before we head on out.
Okay.
And if you ever want to come back on the Noob Spear podcast, you're always welcome to reach out to me and come back again, because I feel like there's always more ground to cover, more stories to tell. But I wanted to ask you, what's one of the funniest things you've experienced out spearfishing?
God, I was looking at that going, what the heck? The funniest thing is, about 20 years ago, we were coming back from this place called El Banco down in mainland Mexico.
It sounds like a place to get into mischief. El Banco.
El Banco, yeah. But no, so we're coming back, and I see this like 500-pound black marlin jumping out. What the hell? So I tell the Pongero, I'm like, hey, go over there. And we go over there, and for maybe 20 minutes, we watched this 500-pound black marlin chase about a 40-pound, 45-pound Dorado.
Wow.
Around. And then it ended with the black marlin spearing the Dorado in midair. Now, this was before all the cell phones and all that. I mean, to have that on camera, that had to have been one of the coolest fish encounters I've ever seen.
Wow.
Is just to be able to watch that and say, how many people in the world have ever seen that? I mean, that was funny. There's so many of them, Shrek, that it's looking through, the hot topics thing you sent me. It's just like, man, it's like, where do I start?
Yeah. That's what I mean.
30 years of
to get
fun
you back.
diving.
Yeah. Well, my personal favorite preference for funny stories is generally poo stories, because I just find, like, being out on boats hundreds of miles offshore and needing to go number 2 is just a reality that we all share, and we've all had plenty of awkward moments.
Well, I got a quick one. So we were diving one day, and my butt's hanging over the edge, and this guy that I used to dive with takes a picture while the log's in midair. There's a good funny one there.
Everyone needs a friend like that, don't they?
And I mean, I'm not a bashful guy, I mean, hey, time to get wetsuits on, I don't wear Speedos or whatever. I'll lube that wetsuit up. All I got is what I got. That's all it is. I mean, we're just a bunch of guys or girls. I don't care if there's girls on board. That's just part of diving. You got to get in your suit, so that's, the poo stories are fun. I didn't want to bring this up though.
No, it's good. All right, man. Spearo Q&A is a faster paced round of questions. So let's get into that. How many years have you been spearfishing, by the way?
About 30 serious. I mean, I started out with a pole spear as I was a kid, but like into spearfishing with spear guns, about 30 years.
All right, so let's say we'll say during your 30 plus years spearfishing, what is the single biggest lesson you've learned?
I wrote that down right here. It is to be humble, to slow down, and to absorb all of your surroundings, because you're going to learn more and enjoy everything that spearfishing has to offer when you just kind of slow down and look at the grand picture. Whether you're watching other people dive, don't be afraid to go kind of follow a guy and watch what he's doing and go, oh wow, I never noticed. Oh wow, okay. And then you go try it, and that's my advice: is slow down. Because when I was young, I would charge. But in the last 15 years, wow, slow down and kind of absorb everything in, and you're going to learn more and enjoy the sport more.
Love it. All right.
And be humble. No matter how big a fish or whatever you think you are, there's always somebody better out there.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's not a competition. You shouldn't be diving for a competition unless you're, in a competition, if that makes sense. But it's not about the biggest fish you can post on social media.
Yeah. No, I get it.
That's not why you should be diving.
100% words of wisdom there. All right, who is the best person to go spearfishing with and why?
The best person to go spearfishing with is somebody that is going to have your back in the water. It could be somebody who's not even a good diver, but they're a good waterman, or your best friend that is going to do everything he can to either save your butt, you're going to save his butt, or help you in any situation. That to me is the best person to go spearfishing. It's not always the most experienced person.
Who are a couple of your favorite dive buddies?
My two best friends.
Okay.
And they're not the best divers, but I have a blast with them. They enjoy being on the water, and we just always have the best time. We talk shit and have a good time diving. We put fish on the boat, and we go home stoked no matter what.
Yeah, love it. Well, what are their names? Who are they?
Mark Griffiths and Brian Brink.
Yeah, righto. Cool. All right, last question. Could you describe what the spearfishing experience means to you in one or two sentences?
Spearfishing is my release from the world. Bottom line, it's my chance to get away from everything.
Love it.
That's a good one. That's as simple as I can put it.
I can relate. Captain Bly, it's been an absolute pleasure. People can come to noobspearo.com/Captain Bly today. I'm going to link his Instagram up, but if you want to go there directly, it's Captain Bly Spearguns. He's also owns and operates Lineage Charters, I hope I'm saying that right. But if you go to your website is captainbly.com? Oh, cptbly.com. So cptbly.com, and that links up pretty much everything.
And I wanted to let everybody know our September and most of our August is full right now on the charters. There's still a lot of good tuna diving in June and July. lineagecharters.com, or you can find us on Instagram, and get a few of your buddies together and come out and try something new, or try to get your personal best or something. I'll promise you that you'll have a fun trip no matter what, and I'm going to do everything I can to get you on the fish.
When I get over there to California at some stage, Bly, I'm going to look you up, and I'm coming out spearing with you.
Oh, dude, I would love to.
It's been on the calendar for a couple of years now. I have patron listeners that support the show on an episode-by-episode basis so that I can travel and come and meet some of the guests that I've had on the podcast and go spearing with them. I'd love to make it over there, and San Diego looks like a beautiful part of the world. And you sound...
Someday I'd love to get to Australia. I've never been there, or New Zealand, So hopefully I'll get to dive with you there.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Bly. Awesome chatting with you. I've had an absolute ball, and as I said earlier, if you want to come back on the show at any time, just sing out, and we'll make that happen.
Thank you. It's been an awesome hour and a half. Great.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed Captain Bligh today. Phenomenal dude, really interesting character, and we had plenty to talk about, as you could tell. I really enjoyed getting to know him and meet him and hear some of his crazy tales from a life spent as a salty sea dog. But hey, let's check out this voice message from Fabian at Fabian_CSM on Instagram. Tell us a story about a snorkel and a notorious dive day.
Hey, yeah, I managed to catch my first turbot after years. Today was really nice, and on my second dive I just checked that my snorkel is broken. What the fuck? And I was diving 1 hour and 50 with a broken snorkel. I was holding it with my hand for prevent that too much water come inside, and really special day.
Thanks at Fabian_CSM on Instagram for submitting that voice message for the podcast. Phenomenal. If you want to do the same, go to noobspearo.com, head up into the Noob Stories menu and submit your own voice message. Guys, thanks for tuning into the Noob Spearo podcast today. I really enjoyed having Captain Bligh. I hope you enjoyed the episode as well. We've got a bunch of sick interviews coming up in the next few weeks. We've got Paul Rodriguez from Hot Rod Spearguns. I'm really looking forward to dropping that. I just want to thank the patrons, the Patreon legends that are supporting the podcast on an episode-by-episode basis. I'm about to do a Sydney tour from Brisbane with a bunch of mates in a camper van, and that's largely paid for by Patreon listeners, like the 50 people that do so every episode. So check that out, patreon.com/noobspearo. Guys, thanks for listening to the podcast today. See you in 2 weeks. Paul Rodriguez from Hot Rod Spearguns. Today's episode was an absolute banger, and so is our major sponsor, Adreno. Visit them at adreno.com.au. They have a huge range of equipment. You can find it at adreno.com.au. Use the code NoobSpearo at checkout. When you shop online, you can save $20 on every purchase over $200. You can even use that code in-store at some of their huge mega stores Australia-wide. Price beat guarantee on any Australian spearfishing equipment price. Again, visit them at adreno.com.au. Use the code NoobSpearo. Neptonics.com source the very best in spearing gear from around the planet. Jerry says, if we sell it, we believe in it, we trust it, and dive it. Neptonics is the one-stop shop for all your spearfishing essentials. Neptonics is solid gear that works, and you'll know it's true when you pull the trigger on a Neptonics mech, on every snap of a Neptonics power band, and in every whiz of a Neptonics speargun reel, singing with the power of another big fish. Buy gear you can depend on at neptonics.com. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10%.